It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Magical day to all. Welcome to Divas That Care Network. I am Joyce Benning, and I will be your host for this magical, robust lifestyle show. I want to thank each and every one of our listeners today that have tuned in to the numerous different podcasts of this great show that we are going to do today with my amazing diva, Gia-Raquel. And her and I are going to chat about tapping into the flow. Oh my, is this going to be a magical show? And with that, Gia, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners today?
Hi, Joyce. I'm so grateful to be back on. Thank you again for having me. And I'm just pleased as punch is what's flowing to me in the moment. So my name is Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga. And I have been a yoga instructor for over a decade now, and a Reiki master for a few years. And I love to try to use any type of energetic healing, whether it be physical or literally energetic, to, better anyone or any living being in or around my vicinity, whether energetic or physical.
Oh, how beautiful. Well, that just ties into what we're going to talk about because into the flow, I mean, through yoga, through Reiki, with the animals, with humans, either way, it's all tapping into the flow of life. So, how would you like to start this to chat today and share with our listeners out there?
So I think that everyone, and I think the best way to kind of create the parallel for everybody that might be tuning in is to think about, I think people call it, especially with regard to like athletes, or I think that, we'll call mainstream media calls it like in the zone. Right. So the idea of being in the zone, right? So if you think about, I think everyone can relate to the idea of, like a football player catches the ball and runs and makes the touchdown, something like that, like about as male centric, no gender, like no zone of no judgment, but like that being truly embodying the present moment.
Mhm.
And I always use yoga balance poses as a way to get people fully in the present moment. I know I've touched on that before, where, if you're balancing on one foot and you're trying to not fall over, you're probably not thinking about your grocery list, right? Like you're trying not to fall over. So there's a lot of ways to start to get yourself into that state. But I think there's a couple layers, I believe, to this state too, right? There's the truly being in the present moment, and the beauty of being in the present moment is, in theory, a lack of fear, unless, you're about to get into a car accident or something to that effect. But if you and I are just sitting here having this conversation in this moment right now, right, that the present is all we have, right?
Mhm.
So if we're both sitting here in the present moment together and, we have a roof over our head and we have the ability to communicate with each other, this is our zone. This is our flow state. This is our present moment. This is all we have at life, is just this moment. And when you and I are done, we will separate ways and we will be in different moments with your horses or with my horses, and that is life. Life is truly all about the present moment. And when we tap into that moment, that is our flow state. That is where we are attuned to the potentially guidance from your higher self, potentially just being like, quote, air quotes again, in the zone. And I loved, kind of like the football metaphor, the athlete metaphor, because I think a lot of people may put, certain, let's just say we put athletes up on a pedestal, right? Because they happen to be able to, we see the moment visually in like professional athletic sports, right? And that's a great way, I think, for people to have understanding of it. But for me as a yoga instructor or Reiki practitioner, for me to practice Reiki, I have to be in a meditative state, in a flow state, in a state of channeling, in a state of intuition. And while that is certainly much less glitzy and glamorous than, being a professional athlete of any kind. It's very much the same state of flow, state of present moment, state of living in the present moment, state of being. And what's amazing about it is that everyone has access to it, and it is for everyone to access it in their own way, for their own being, for their own purposes, for their own divine mission, whatever you want to call it. It's always there. We just have to tap into it.
Oh, so true that is. And how you said you have to be in that present moment through yoga and Reiki. And yeah, you may not be in the spotlight, but look at the feeling of being able to help others to get into that flow. And it's an inner feeling that you can experience yourself of being in that. You're in the spotlight by helping them. Even though you're not out there as an athlete carrying the ball for a touchdown or making that final basket to win the game or something, the winning is by helping others to be able to come into that present moment and feel that flow in life. So that was what came to my mind when you said that about maybe not being in the spotlight, and really you are, because it's the spotlight of helping others.
And there's no greater spotlight than one of service, and I believe that to my very core. But I just think that I hope that metaphor is people can say, oh yeah, well of course, like that. Yeah. I feel like people can look at an athlete and you see it's very, and you could look, and this is kind of the opposite kind of mentality about it. But do you remember the picture? I believe it was a Tibetan monk, but please don't hold me to that, where the monk would literally set himself on fire in a state of protest. Do you remember that image? I believe it was from way, way, way back. It was a black and white photo, but I think it's a very, poignant image. And in order to do that, to sit and be on fire like that, talk about a state of flow. Let's talk about being able to do that is, a level, like we talked about, like the state of flow has layers. That is like a layer above and beyond, the average human bear, if you will. So, there are levels to it, but I do think that, it's hard when it's easy to see the flow state in something like watching sports online. I think that's, or on the computer, whatever, however you're getting your information. It's easy to see that person in their state of flow. Whereas maybe you don't recognize, like you just said to me, well, you're healing others. Maybe, you don't recognize your own state of flow when you're even in it. But I think that I'm going to share this because it's you, and we can have this conversation when we talk about like horseback riding. Yeah. It's probably, we are obviously so blessed to have that experience. It's probably one of the, similarly to yoga. And again, there's that physical element of putting you in the moment in your body. That's one kind of gateway to get to it. But when you're on a horse, you're pretty much in that present moment, because you have to be, there's an element of alertness when you're on a horse that, you're not, generally speaking, and not everybody, you can obviously get distracted, but there's an element of connection with the animal, connection with the present moment, and connection with that kind of intuitive, extrasensory, interpretation of that point in time, that existence.
Oh, yes. So true. Because to me, the animals live in the present moment. They're that step above where they don't even think about it. It just comes natural. Because I know my one older horse that's been one of his things, live in the present moment. Live in the present moment and enjoy it, and enjoy the beauty that surrounds you in that present moment. And I'm like, isn't that the truth? It's just like walking outside first thing in the morning or anytime, and you hear the birds singing. You have to be in that present moment to hear those birds singing. Because if your mind is going that I got to do this, I got to do that today, I got to be here, I got to be there, you can just totally tune it out. And to me, that's, for myself personally, that is something that I have to come back to reality and go, I'm really not in the present moment right now. Or even when I'm out feeding the horses, am I really there feeding the horses, or is it just emotion I'm going through where my mind is somewhere else? And I can tell it on my horses. They're much more in tune with me and much more lovable when I'm in that present moment and not just going through the motions of what I need to be doing. So that's something that came to my mind when I think about the animals and the flow. And the animals they're just amazing because they just live in it. They're loving the present moment right now. They're not worried about what the next hour is going to bring to them. They're enjoying you being right there in the moment. So
Yeah. And I think there is, again, I when I say this, I will admit to, knowing nothing, like, right, like I know nothing. However, I do believe that there's an element of we'll call it evolution, right? Because
mhm,
animals still, even our dear horses who are relatively safe in their barns and their corrals and their fenced in areas, they are safe, but they're still flight animals, and they're
yeah,
still, even though they know they're safe, they're still, if they hear a rustle, they're not safe anymore, and their
right.
ears perk up and off they go. It's just
Mhm.
that's them, right? And I think, we can look at domesticated dogs and kind of look at ourselves as humans as being domesticated humans, right? Like we all come from that original survival state, and that flow state is the elevation of the flow state comes from, I think, the basic survival state, right? Because when humans did not have cities and jobs and currency and money and, and responsibilities, and, when it was about, hunting and gathering and that type of thing, we were basically, animals too. We are animals too. And so when you're talking about that state of flow was more than likely everyone probably lived there. It wasn't until we socialized ourselves, again with the air quotations, that our minds started to take over. Maybe we got comfortable, maybe we got complacent, and we started to have these thoughts with, yoga calls it the monkey mind, right? Or the mind shatter. And that's when we kind of delve into the meditative aspect of focusing the mind to quiet the chatter, to achieve that flow state. So, when we talk about either being in it, right? There are different ways to meditate. There are different ways to bring yourself into that flow state, walking in nature, right? Like you can, if you're, as long as you're not thinking about your grocery list or,
Yeah.
the chores that you didn't do, right? Like even the chores with the animals, being with your animals, like those are all perfect examples of places where you can be in a state of flow. But if you're not paying attention, your mind will go elsewhere, and you're no longer focusing on filling that water bucket. You're filling that water bucket and thinking about the next thing that you're going to need to do, right? And that it's almost like a disassociation. As soon as you begin to think or overthink, you take yourself out of the flow state, and the flow state is where the magic happens, right? The water bucket is where the magic is actually happening, whether we think that that's magical. Finding the magical in the mundane, right? Like that's it. That's where the true magic lies. And I think that the main aspect, no matter what flow state you're achieving, right? Whether you're a pro athlete, whether you are a Reiki practitioner, whether you're a yoga practitioner, whether you're an equestrian, no matter where you are, even if you're just working, working a 9 to 5, whatever it is, it's about focus. The
Mhm.
flow state is about your focus, and that's where the training to I don't want to say force, but to attain that state of flow. Meditation is a great way to train, because meditation is about focusing the mind, whether you're focusing on the breath, whether you're focusing on a mantra, whether you're focus it is clearing all of that mind chatter, clearing that monkey mind, and focusing on the moment, the breath, the mantra, whatever it may be. If you are like a yoga instructor, it's being in that balance pose, or being in that vinyasa sequence flow where you are totally in your body. You can use your body as a way to bring yourself into the present moment. I don't know if you're familiar with people that have anxiety or panic attacks, where
Oh, yeah.
the people tell them, find 5 things you can see, 3 things you can smell, right, in the room, to bring them. That active practice is literally bringing them out of their panic, out of their state of mind, and into their body. And that's just, these are just different ways, different modalities of how to start to, the more you stay in the state of flow, the hopefully the more things flow to you, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think the more beauty you will find when you stay in that present moment and in that flow. Because there's so much beauty that just lies around you that, to me, when you get into that busy body chatter mind, the beauty seems to kind of fall away. And you're kind of like, oh man, I got this, and this to do, and I got to go here, got to go there. And you fail to see any of the beauty that surrounds any of it. And yeah, when you can stay in that, just kind of flow along with it all, it's amazing how much more beautiful life can be.
Absolutely. And I think you're so right, because rarely is that mind chatter positive.
Right.
Right? Rarely, if ever, I won't blanket statement, but rarely, if ever, is whatever is spiraling around in that beautiful mind of ours, right? Rarely is that not negative. Is that, sorry to use double negative, but it's generally worry or fear based. It's generally future or past oriented, right? So you're either, I know, like, a lot of, I had an ex-boyfriend of mine who had social anxiety, and he would say that after social interactions, he would start to replay things in his mind over and over and over again. And I know I've done it. I know all of us have probably done it. You said something, and then, like, later that night, you're like, oh God. And then you overthink it, and you play it in your mind, and then you analyze it, and you make a story around it, and the story is never accurate, and you're putting all of this stuff on this other random poor person, right? You're not in a state of flow. No. You're in a state of driving yourself crazy is really what you're doing. So, and that's focusing on that past, right? Because you can't control, it's beyond you now, but your mind is trying to make sense and control, and that's what the mind does. And then if you're worried about the future, well, it's doing the same thing. It's creating, I have to do X, Y, and Z. Well, you're not doing it right now, but you know that you need to do it. So now you're focusing on that and out of where you are and out of what you're doing. And, like, think about someone who maybe has an occupation operating heavy machinery. Well, I hope you're certainly in a flow state when you're focusing on, like, have you seen any of those, like, forklift fail videos on like the internet, where it's like, you know what, that person got distracted for a second, and now an entire pallet of soda is all over some sort of warehouse floor, right? Like, so think about that as a metaphor, right? It's not just about top athletes. It's not just about people meditate, Tibetan monks or Buddhist monks meditating. It's everybody. It's the magic in the mundane, and it's really the ability to be completely present in what you're doing, no matter what it is. And then that list of things that you need to do. I'm not telling you not to stay organized and not to take some form of control, air quotes around control, over your life. And I'm not saying planning is a bad thing, but it is an element of, well, if I know I'm not going to do that right now, then let me focus on what I'm doing now. It's like the opposite of multitasking. The flow state is the opposite of multitasking, essentially. I think if we can leave no other nugget than that, it is the opposite of multitasking.
Oh, I so agree with you, because so many thoughts come to my mind, because I usually do something stupid when I'm in that chatter mind and trying to do something else. And I'm like, why didn't I just focus on what I was doing? And that, with the forklift, was a prime example. Or even the other day, I was trying to do 100 different things and turned around and hit my head on the door. I'm like, well, if I would have been paying attention and had my mind at where I was at, this would not have happened. And it was kind of a message came to me, just slow down and enjoy the beauty around you. And I'm like, oh, how true that is. So then I stepped outside and the birds were singing, and I'm going, okay, this is what I was supposed to be enjoying, rather than thinking of everything else that I thought I had to be doing at that moment.
Yeah. And again, it's that, I think there's an element of relaxing into the fact that, hopefully, thankfully, you and I are safe in the space that we're in the present. You have to be safe, right?
Right.
Right. Like that, like basic needs need to be met for you to achieve a flow state. But, or, let me contradict myself immediately, or the opposite is true, the very extreme opposite. If you do think about, let's say, a football player who is getting chased by a 350-pound linebacker.
Yeah.
And safety is the opposite, but that person is in a state of flow simply because they know that if they stop running, they're going to be tackled. So, I think it's a clear duality of it's either, you're safe enough to be in that meditative state, in that sacred space, or you are in that fight or flight space where it is pure adrenaline and pure, you're still flow, but that flow is potentially, for your own protection.
Yeah.
Is what I will say.
Definitely.
But it's still fully attuned to the present moment. That is the thread of commonality between them is fully immersed in exactly what it is that you are doing in this moment. Because again, like we have this illusion of the future and the past, and in any given moment, the future and the past are solely constructs of our mind.
Yeah. And we overthink them, just like the example you gave earlier. I'll do that sometime. I was like, well, why did I say that? Or I should have said this. Well, you know what? It don't matter now. It's done. It's over with. And the other person probably didn't think it the way you're thinking it anyway, because everybody takes everything. And you can say something to 10 different people and they're going to understand it in 10 different ways.
Yes.
So when we turn our mind into start thinking it, I truly believe we overthink so many things. And how much energy do we waste on doing that? Or overthinking what's going to happen in the future? We spend so much energy on that. And think what we could accomplish in the present moment if we just kept that energy right there where it needs to be.
So, we're gonna take a little bit of a detour from where, just because of what you just said, because it's gonna, we were talking about meditation, we're talking about tapping into the flow. But I also, when we talk about, and I'll let this be for those people who believe in this, which I happen to, but for those people who believe in it, in the state, in like manifestation and the ability to create your reality or co-create with the source, because I don't want to take, I guess I'm somewhat religious. I'm spiritual. I'm all about a higher power than myself, without putting names to it. But to that end, I think that when you talk about the energy that you waste worrying, or the energy that you waste, I had another friend of mine who, and I do this too. We all worry about the future, worry about, like we just do. It's human nature to do that. But I said to her exactly what you just said. And I said, well, think about, like, instead of worrying about this particular thing happening, why don't you consciously, when you start to have that thought, redirect the thought into what you want to happen and have that thought instead, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a meditative practice, right? That, like, just acknowledging the thought and redirecting the thought is an exercise in meditation. We've had that conversation before. Yeah. And if you want to take it to the next level, to that idea of manifestation, and I'm not going to say that it's going to, miraculously happen for you tomorrow, but it certainly isn't going to happen any less if you do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, you're not going to ruin your chances by taking a negative thought and flipping it into a positive thought, or taking an outcome you fear and focusing your energy on an outcome you want to have happen, to occur. Yeah. So I think that, and when we're talking about the flow state, I think there's a state of, I always kind of get this, and this is my own kind of back and forth within my own mind, but, I'll share it. There's an element, and we've talked about, receptivity. Well, being in the flow state is essentially being in a receptive state, right? When I'm practicing Reiki, I am a channel for that energy. I'm not really doing anything other than, directing it. It's not, when I heal, and again, I'll use my air quotes, but when I'm healing, I'm not actually doing the healing. Your body, your horse's body, the person that I'm working on, their body is healing themselves. And the energy that is flowing through me is creating that catalyst of healing in their body, essentially. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm just the channel. That's all I'm doing. Think of it as like, like a magnet coming in and flowing out. And hopefully I'm directing it in ways that are helpful. But that is, I'm in a state of receptivity. The person is, or the being, the animal is in a state of receptivity. And so we are in that flow state together. We're sharing that flow state. And then when you talk about, manifestation, that just like when we're talking about meditation, whereas you receive certain, some people go into meditation to receive answers, to receive guidance. And then some people go into meditation to create, to use a mantra, to attract, right? And so I think that when you're talking about the idea of manifestation, or you're talking about the idea of attracting, you're still, even in that manifestation, talking about receptivity.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're trying to co-create, you're still attracting and being in a receiving energy.
Yeah.
And I think that flow state is imperative to receiving that energy and being able to receive the gifts, blessings, manifestations, the thing that you want versus the thing that you fear.
Oh, I so agree, because what comes to my mind when you're out in meditation, or for me, it's going out in nature.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's releasing some of that stress and receiving that positive that you need to receive to let go of the stressful day maybe you've had, or some stressful thoughts. But you've got to be open to receive the good that will come in, and let go of all that negativity or fear or stress that's built up inside of you, and receive the good that the universe, God, spirits, whoever you want to call it, that higher power is trying to bring into your life and help you to let go of the stress. So it's kind of like it's giving and taking. You have to let go and take in the good. So
Yeah,
that's what kind of
absolutely.
came to my mind when we were talking about that. But yeah, it's just, it is such an amazing experience when you can experience being in that flow. And I think people are in it, they just don't realize that's what they're in. When they're maybe at their kids' ball game, and they're so excited because their grandchild is playing ball, and maybe they made that point or something. They're living in that moment right then, but they're not even thinking about it. And we're
Yeah.
in it a lot of times where it kind of just goes by us. We don't even realize we were in that present moment. So some people think, oh, I don't know if I can do this. This is too hard. Well, no, you're probably doing it already. It's just realizing it.
No, and I think that is what you said is so perfect, because it's if it's one of those things where, if you don't realize it, then maybe you know that you did it, right? Like
Uh-huh.
you're so in it that you're not realizing it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the things I think a great, again, because I don't know why at my life I operate in metaphors, because I feel like it helps people to kind of understand where my mind's at.
Uh-huh.
But I think of it as, taking a picture. Let's say you're at a party.
Yeah.
Let's say it's your grandchild's party, or let's say it's that same baseball game that your grandchild, whatever it is. As soon as you are taking a picture of it, you are no longer experiencing it. Why? Because now your focus is on your phone, your focus is on setting up the shot. The organic nature of the moment has been constructed into something of your mind's creation. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with taking photos, but talk about not being in a state of flow, right? Unless you're like, again, a photographer that's like a sports photographer and that's your job, that's a different thing, right? If you're catching a
Mhm.
present moment, it's different than constructing one. But you yourself, potentially, if you're not celebrating that victory if you're focused on taking a picture of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's just such a great metaphor for the flow state versus not being present, but not fully being present.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you so much. I find that even out in nature, if I would think, oh my, I need to take a picture of that. Well, my mind went to taking that picture and that phone rather than this present moment that I'm enjoying the beauty of it. So yeah, I guess that's why half the time I forget to take a picture because I'm too focused in the moment.
I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I think it's good for us. And I think more people should take less. I think people should take less photos.
Yeah.
Because I do, like, and for me, generally 9 times out of 10, the photo, unless they're photos of your animals or your children, then,
Yeah.
have at it and take all the photos because I
Yeah.
will say that, at some point in time, especially with your animals, you will want to have those photos,
Yes.
right? We all know
Yes,
you need those
definitely.
photos. So this is in no way photography shaming. But, like I think I didn't catch this weekend's eclipse, but I remember trying to take a photo of the lunar eclipse we had like a few weeks back.
Uh-huh.
It was terrible. The photo was awful. Like, and it was just, it doesn't look like anything. It looks like, literally light years away. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what am I going to do? Am I going to post the photo? Like, it looks terrible. No.
Yeah.
So like, just stand there, look up and appreciate the eclipse.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right? Like, just be there with the eclipse and be in that moment and fully be present and put your phone down.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Majority of the time when I go out in nature, I don't even have my phone. I'm like,
I leave mine at home too.
I'm like,
yep,
I don't need it. I'm gonna go out and just enjoy it. So
I don't want to be bothered.
yeah, I don't either. I don't want the thought of, oh, I need the picture. Here's my phone. I'm like, no, I don't need it.
That 20 minutes are for me and my dogs, and I don't need,
Exactly.
I used to take my phone on walks. I used to do business on my walks. I would get back to call. I would call people, whatever. I would have chats. I would listen to music. And it was actually over the summer, talking about like manifesting, but it was over the summer that I started doing these walking meditations for a nonprofit that I'm associated with. And I was like, what an opportunity have I been missing out on by having these 20-minute walks in nature that I do a minimum of twice a day, every day, that I'm not using to, put positivity, manifest, create,
Exactly.
co-create, right? So I started, basically using them and now I say things. I probably like a crazy person walking around saying things out loud, but I say these positive things that I, want to create in my life out loud as I walk my dogs.
Yeah.
And I refuse to bring my phone, and I refuse to I'll actually think, oh, I have to call that person back. Oh, well, this is my time with my dogs and my creation, and you don't get this time. I will call you back when I'm done. But that was a huge aha moment for me. Was after I started doing those walking meditations, I was like, I'm listening to music, and same music I always listen to that I love, you know what I mean? But look at this opportunity that's in my face that I'm not going to say I'm wasting it, but it certainly isn't my best use of the present moment.
Right.
Right.
Well, Gia, we are down to just a few minutes left in this beautiful show that we've been doing. Would you please share with our listeners the best ways to connect with you before we end this show?
I would love to, Joyce. Thank you. So again, my name is Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga. And you can find me at Airs Above Yoga on all of the socials except for one. I'm not currently on TikTok. And you can also find me at airsaboveyoga@gmail.com and airsaboveyoga.com for any ways to connect with me. And hopefully you will. Joyce and I will be doing this again in the future, I'm sure. And
yes, definitely.
And we can absolutely dive deeper into this, but I do thank you so much for having me, because it's always I truly believe that you and I enter a flow state together every time that we do this. And that's why, I few things give me as great pleasure. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And yes, you just answered my question too, because we're definitely going to do this some more, because I feel the same way. We flow together off of one another, and I love it.
Me too. Me too.
I want to wish you and all your animal families a magical, magical time till you and I connect again on Robust Lifestyles.
Thank you. And to you and yours as well.
Thank you so much. And with that, I want to thank all of our listeners for listening to this magical show with our amazing diva, Gia-Raquel. Please share the show with your family and friends. Check out all the other hosts and their shows on divasthatcare.com. And remember, beauty is in the present moment, and it's really all we have is this present moment. And embody this present moment. Clear all that mind chatter from your mind and enjoy the moment. And with that, I want to wish each of you a magical day. Be kind to all, including your animals, and give your animals a great big extra hug and share all your love with them as they so deserve it. Until we connect again on Robust Lifestyles, stay strong and healthy.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.